Hey, everybody, Kat30420 back at it again. Coronavirus free, cross your fingers. I don't know, it's coming. Um, those of you who freak out easily probably shouldn't watch my video because I like to make sure that when I come to you with stuff, especially when I'm coming to you with stuff that I'm not getting paid for, because if you're a creator or if you're just a YouTube watcher, know this. Any video you watch related to the coronavirus is automatically demonetized. You can, I put them in for review, and they're normally set for limited status, which is yellow, which makes nothing, next to nothing. So basically, for my channel, which was just finally after 3 years monetized, the biggest thing that's happening in the world right now, the one thing that you guys want to know the most information about, YouTube doesn't want to pay for. So if you look forward to coming to your favorite creators for the truth and the information that you know that you're not getting out anywhere else, then let me say that you should support your creator, whether it's me, whether it's not. It doesn't. That doesn't matter. Patreon, Cash App, PayPal, all these other ways now, so that YouTube is making millions off of our content and not paying us for that content by claiming that ad companies don't want to place ads on that content. But the funny thing is that even though you're not paying me for it, when I watch it from another account, there's commercials still on there. There's skippable ads still on there. So you're telling me that the ad companies don't want to be on there, but you're putting them on there anyway, and you're making money, but I'm not. Understand, that's what every person who's doing coronavirus videos for you guys are dealing with this right now. We're putting tons of time and effort into it only to have YouTube on us. So bear with us. I'll throw my Cash App in the description if you're interested. Let's get going. Guys, this is some scary shit. I'm not going to lie. Let's start this video out with some truth. And that's because I don't think anybody has ever seen, in our lifetime, has ever seen anything like this. We have been lucky enough to, the few times we came close to something like this, it didn't affect the U.S. the way that they had predicted. You guys, this is scary because right now we're on track with Italy, meaning basically the exact way that COVID-19 has spread in Italy is the way they're expecting it to spread in the United States. And right now, things are so bad in Italy, it says Italy announces all shops except outlets will be closed as coronavirus death toll climbs by 31%. That's 1 in every 3, guys. 1 in every 3. Think about that. To 827 and 24 ICU units are advised, listen to me, to stop treating the elderly. You heard that right. Not in China, not in Russia, not in some, terrorist ran country. There's not some autocratic, dictatorial leader saying to their people, we're not going to treat the old and the weak because, obviously we have only so much to work with. And so we want to work on the ones that have a better chance of surviving. No, this is Italy. Italy, a democratic country, just as in the EU, and excuse me, it's probably one of the countries that's closest resembles the way we run things here. They're telling hospitals if someone that's 80 years old comes in here and tests positive for COVID, and someone that comes in here that's 40 years old and tests positive for COVID, and they are both equally in this terrible condition and need a ventilator, and there is only one ventilator, you are to turn away the elderly. What the hell is going on? Like, how is this not being talked about? This is look at right up in the corner. This is NewsGuard checked, guys. I want you to see. This is not some, yeah, oh shoot, I gotta start my trial again. All right, I'll do it later. Anyway, but it's still green, so that means that this one is Daily Mail is a NewsGuard approved site, meaning they've proven that more times than not, the stuff Daily Mail prints is facts. So all non-essential shops, I just told you that. Denmark has announced it will close all kindergarten, schools, and universities for 2 weeks. Comes as coronavirus case. Oh yeah, doctors warn as coronavirus case in Italy top 12,000. Italy, see, they didn't close any of their borders, guys. They still haven't. They have had open travel from Wuhan straight to the center of Italy and back since the day that we stopped. I mean, nobody else did. They did give Trump a lot of shit for that travel ban, that initial travel ban. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have had that little extra time we've had. I promise you that. Italian doctor said that the intensive care ward should place an age limit on beds as a way of prioritizing medical resources. A top Italian doctor said an ICU ward should place an age limit on beds as a way of prioritizing medical resources amid the deepening crisis that has seen cases in Italy rise from 196 to 827. It's fucking scary. I don't even, I say the sentence, but I don't even think my brain is comprehending that there's someone out there literally, these are their orders for their staff, that things have gotten, shit has hit the fan so hard that this is the only options they have left. The Chinese, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to swear, but at the same time, I'm so stressed. So the Chinese they built, 6 hospitals that held 10,000 beds, and believe me, they were of no standard of care, but they were able to quarantine, they were able to separate them, keep the patients apart, and all but the severe cases they were able to treat in those army built hospitals that they built in 6 to 10 days. Why is Italy not doing this? Why, when they got their first 100 cases, were they not doing this? Because best believe FEMA's doing it in the United States. Oh, yeah. Best believe it. There's different things going on in each state, but federally, FEMA is also preparing camps. Believe that, because right now, say in Seattle, for instance, Seattle is actually going through such a crisis, and that's where the nursing home is going. All the people are dying in the nursing home. They bought up Econo Lodge it's a $4 million hotel, and it's where it's set up so that each room has its own separate air system coming in and out. So unlike most places, or the cruise ships, or all these other people because what they're saying is what if you have COVID and you've already been quarantined and you've been going through treatment, your family is proven not to be test positive, so they get to go home. You're in the hospital getting ready to be released, but you can't go home to your family yet because you're still, even though you're being released from the hospital, you're still contagious. You're still carrying COVID, and it's going to be weeks before you may have permanent lung damage. Regardless, you need a place to go where you're not going to can make other people get it. Wow, I had a brain fart. So Washington bought up a bunch of two $4 million Econo Lodges, and they are now the central quarantine. If you're being quarantined for any reason, it's there. And I guess they're seeing a lot of hotels discriminate and turn people away that are dealing with that, whatnot. So, Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte announced the latest wave of restrictions and a dramatic appeal to the nation that came as 60 million battles its biggest crisis a country of 60 million battles its biggest crisis in generations. Conte said in his 9-minute evening primetime address, "Thank you to all Italians who make sacrifices. We are proving to be a great nation." Wait a minute. And did you not just say hang on, sorry. I hate this desk. Did you not just say the paragraph before, so let the old people die and because they're old. And so to prioritize ICU beds by age, and then you're saying, okay, that's the sacrifices you must be talking about. You think they're voluntarily just giving? No, I don't think they're voluntarily giving up anything. I think they're going to the hospital thinking they're doing the right thing, they're going to get help, and basically they're finding out that by age, according to their age, they have a value in their society now, and that is scary. Because if it's not by age, what else will it be? By your bank account? By what you own? By the color of your skin? What will it be when this gets so bad? What will allow you that little bit of special treatment? Huh? Could you think about that? When it gets so bad that the elderly are all gone and now they're looking for the next weak link in the chain? Strange. The existing clampdown on public gathering and basic travel had already emptied seats and shuttered everything from churches to restaurants. It says there's a total confirmed infections in Europe of 23,339 with close to 951 deaths. And then it says Italy number has risen to 12,149 with 827 deaths. More European countries are reporting their first deaths of people with the new contagion. Sorry, that's not, I swear I don't have coronavirus. Everybody keeps putting that in the comments. If you know me and you hit clicked on my stuff, you know my name is K420. You know I'm a smoker. You know that I promote legal medical marijuana use for many, my autoimmune disorder, my PTSD, things like that. I totally promote that. So you know me. So you know. So I have, in wintertime, smoker's cough. However, cigarette smoking is a big deal with this COVID-19 because they're saying that 2/3 of Asian men smoke. So they're finding that a great number of the deaths were Asian men who were smokers. They're saying that they believe because they already had damaged lungs that once they hit that stage of COVID, the third stage where the permanent damage is done to the lungs, it was just too much and they were dying of viral pneumonia. Rome's deputy Maria Teresa Baldini wears protective mask and gloves as she helps deal with the fallout. Yeah, she looks like she's about ready to break down. This is Como Street, one of the traditional gatherings of Milanese life, deserted. See right here, Como Street is where everybody goes shopping when you got endless credit cards. All right, so let's get to the other stuff here. Hang on. It says in another development, top doctors suggested that rather than admit patients on a first-come, first-served basis, hospitals should swap to catastrophe medicine guidelines, typically used in war zones. Drop that little piece in there for you. And during natural disasters, where those with the greatest chance of survival are given priority. Now, if you're one of those people, then you're probably not you don't see anything wrong with that statement. Hopefully you do, even if you are a person who has a better chance of surviving than the next. Hopefully that statement still bothers the shit out of you, like it does me, because I don't want to be told that my life is more valuable than someone else's based on my age or any other reason. And it's scary when this is why I don't want universal health care. People are not seeing that the systems that had this national health service are in communist China and EU that this is exactly what happens when you have the government in charge of your health care, guys, of your health insurance, of what you're allowed to get treatment-wise and all that. When the government runs it all, you might as well forget about it. Containment was gone the minute the government took over. You know what I mean? When they stepped in and started making their own thing, then you might as well have just said, all right, containment's done. Because the bureaucracy will always fuck shit up. Anyway, if a limit on beds is implemented, it could mean elderly patients with no sign. I can't tell what's underneath there, but with no sign of something are turfed off ICU wards to make space for younger patients who have with no signs of getting better of coronavirus, mean turfed off ICU wards to make space for younger patients who have longer left to live. I can tell you that when I started doing these videos for y'all, I don't think I ever in a million years thought that it would even ever come to this point where I would be reading a statement like that. I thought maybe there was a better chance of a zombie apocalypse happening and I would be reporting zombies in the streets eating brains before I told you that our medical professionals are prioritizing us treatment-wise based on our survivability rates. Well, I'm only 40, but I'm pretty screwed up. And so I hate to see what they choose to do with someone like me because I have autoimmune disorders. I've got a lot of issues that, and I can't even get a flu vaccine. I can't get any of that because it wreaks havoc in my system. So I'm basically self-quarantined all the time anyway. My point is that I don't think anybody thought it was going to get this bad. But it is. And we haven't even got it yet. We are just, we're at what Italy was at 2.5 weeks ago. By the end of March, first 2 weeks of April, the United States is going to see something like it's never seen before. Because there's nothing to stop it at this point. I mean, herd immunity, but that's not, this is we don't know enough about it. Instead of getting it and building up antibodies to it, and so that when you're exposed to it again, you can fight it off. It's not happening with this. There's so many things about this disease that don't make sense. That's not that it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't fit in with what we know about viruses. Oh my goodness. Okay, so about 112,000 patients infected worldwide and about 4,000 dead. Basically, that was the worst one that I found. But come on, guys. It's made it into Switzerland, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Sudan, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Eritrea, Kenya, Djibouti, Somalia. The kingdom has also suspended entry to those coming from those countries. Saudi Arabia Kingdom. Whew. Boy, those numbers are jumping. It's just the entire this like that. So if this is a test, if they are testing a biological weapon, well, I wonder how they like the results of their empty streets, the stock market plummeting, of people dying of a terrible death. There's like 2 ways I never want to die. One is in a fire, and the other is drowning. This is like drowning. It's as close as you can get to drowning. You're drowning in the air instead of water. Anyway, next. It gets better. Let's see. So this doctor says, this is an intensive care doctor who's been dealing with coronavirus patients over in Italy. And he says, what they're telling us is BS. What they're telling us about older people and how children and the young healthy people is not really affecting, and so on and so forth, unless you have conditions, whatever. Oh, I need to blow my nose. I'll do it. Anyway, so coronavirus doctor reveals his patient is in intensive care. His patients in intensive care are as young as 40 and do not have underlying health conditions, contradicting official advice. Give me a second, guys. Blow my nose. I don't want to do it next to the microphone. All right. And call right here. See? Blow your nose. Wash your hands. That easy. Anywho, um, so this is a big thing because this is what everybody's pushing this. If you're not a senior citizen, you really don't have a lot to worry about. If you're not a person like me with, pre pre-existing conditions, nothing to really worry about. So according to this doctor, that's not true. And his name is Dr. Sam Fink. I'm trying to get this off, sorry. Dr. Sam Fink. Let's see. Treating 2 patients stricken with COVID-19 and is friends with a third in Tarzana, California. All 3 men are in ICU, including one who's in his 40s and has no pre-existing conditions. Okay? Dr. Fink made headlines this week when he urged schools to close down to help slow the spread of coronavirus. The doctor warned that the U.S. needs to immediately make drastic changes in order to avoid becoming like Italy, which has more than 10,000 cases. As of Wednesday morning, more than 1,000 have been tested in the U.S., or people in the U.S. have been tested positive, and there have been more than 31 deaths. This is Dr. Sam Fink. A California doctor says 3 men that he knows are struck down with coronavirus, all in ICU, are all as young as 40, contradicting that the disease only impacts the elderly. Sam Fink, who is based in the affluent town of Tarzana, began treating 2 men following their return trip home from a ski trip to northern Italy late last month. He's friends with a third person and who's now in ICU battling the virus. He says, I've never seen anything like this. I think anybody that's in the healthcare field, anybody that you talk to, your cousin, your aunt, your mother, the neighbor, and the first thing that they say is that I've never seen anything like this. And that should scare the daylights out of you. These people who are in the hospital, it should scare you the more they say it and the longer that's all they're saying about it when they don't have anything else to say but that, because that means that they continue to know nothing new about it. These people in the hospital are generally young, 40, 50, 60. These are not elderly people. There are 3 people who are not, these are 3 people who are now in the ICU. It's my understanding that one has underlying medical issues. The other 2 sure don't. Not having underlying medical issues does not protect you, he warned. Dr. Fink hit the headlines earlier this week after he took to Facebook to urge all schools to close down amidst the coronavirus. The post was subsequently shared tens of thousands of times. The medic says he took to social media to share his concern about the alarming rate that the coronavirus, or the killer virus, is spreading. He believes that closing down the schools could help drastically slow down the spread of the disease. Jeepers. I'm not reading that map, but you guys are more than welcome to come check. Matter of fact, I wouldn't check out any map other than the what's that? The hospital one there starts with a J. I'll get it before I'll put it in the description. It's the one that did the simulation. Guys, this doctor is saying that. So now listen, in 2 stories, I've just told you something and that should blow your mind. The first doctor in Italy is saying we're prioritizing. We're keeping the young people because they have a fight left in them and a life to live for, and they have a bigger survivability rate. So the elderly are turned away, are to be turned away. Let them die at home on their couch. They lived a long, healthy life. Then you have another doctor who is treating patients in the same manner of the same thing, 2 in one hospital and one that he knows personally as a friend. All 3 men are way under the age limit, and 2 out of 3 have no underlying conditions. So explain again why these men were able to contract it. See, healthcare workers, we always know trying to see. This we don't know. This was scary. Like we always got an answer. I don't have an answer right now. This is the scariest thing I've ever seen. And this is only as of March 10th, guys. If this slope from March 2nd, 8 days later to March 10th, March 11th, where do you think we're going to be April 11th? You need to think about these things. And that doesn't mean go buy 19 rolls or 19 packs of toilet paper either. Leave it to us to, the world is ending, but God damn it, I will not be so undignified that I will ever have to wipe my ass with my hands. Oh, shoot. All right. So, one more here. This is the part that I really want you guys to pay attention to. That next, it's not going to be as entertaining. Let's say, oh look at my face, entertaining. But you guys, this is very important. This is going to tell you based on where you are in the world when you need to start not panicking, but when you need to realize that this hasn't even really touched the United States compared to other places yet. And we're still in for the big hit. Come on down. This is a virologist, I believe, or epidemiologist. I'll have to check. But on Twitter, she had a nice long thread. Her name is Liz Specht. And I'm going to read you some stuff, and then, if you're better just closing your eyes and listening, do that, because then you can picture what I'm reading to you. And I think that's how I did it when I had read, when someone was reading it to me, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it was like, oh my God. So here we go. Let me just say what she says. I think most people aren't aware of the risk of systemic healthcare failure, which is going on in Italy due to COVID-19, because they simply haven't run the numbers yet. This is for the United States. Pay attention. Let's conservatively assume there are 2,000 current cases in the U.S. today, March 6th. That is about 8 times the number of confirmed lab-diagnosed cases. We know there's a substantial underdiagnosis due to lack of test kits. I'll address the implications later of an overestimate, she says. She's letting you know that ahead of time. We can expect that we'll continue to see a doubling of cases every 6 days. This is a typical doubling time across several epidemiological studies. Here, I mean actual cases. Confirmed cases may appear to rise faster in the short term due to the new test kit rollouts. We are looking at about 1 million U.S. cases by the end of April. I'm going to say that again. We are looking at about 1 million U.S. cases by the end of April, 2 million by May 5th, 4 million by May 11th, and so on. Every 6 days, the number doubles. That's scary. Guys, we haven't seen anything yet. Tip of the iceberg, we haven't even seen the tip. The tip's still about 3 miles out. We're in trouble. So don't think that because, the mainstream news has you panicking and you've already went to the store and the shelves are cleared out and all that. All you got to do is just quarantine and wait for it to pass, because it's going to be a minute, and our economy is going to be wrecked by the time this is done. So anyway, let's finish. As the healthcare system begins to saturate under the caseload, it will become increasingly hard to detect, track, and contain new transmission chains. In the absence of extreme interventions, this likely won't slow significantly until hitting 1% of the susceptible population. Meaning, it won't start creating that herd immunity thing we were talking about until 1 million of us have been infected. And that means it can't just jump from one to another because 3 or 4 out of that group have already had it and it's built up an antibody to it, even if it's had it once or twice or maybe even 3 times. So anyway, what does a caseload of this size mean for the United States healthcare system? Well, we'll examine 2 factors: hospital beds and masks. Okay, among many, many other things that will be impacted. Those are just 2. China's threatening to not send us our antibiotics or the ingredients for our antibiotics as some type of punishment for blaming them for the virus. And if you didn't know, the companies that make the masks, it's an American company that's based in China. Everything was on the boat to come over here. China stopped the boat, took all the cargo and said, no, we need this for our people. Now, don't get me wrong. If that was the other way around, do I think Donald Trump would do that to make sure his citizens had? Of course I do. Absolutely. Listen up. The U.S. has about 2.8 hospital beds per 1,000 people. With a population of 330 million, this is 1 million beds at any given time. Now, 65% of those beds are already taken, occupied, whatever. That leaves about 330,000 beds available nationwide, perhaps a bit fewer this time of year with flu season and all. Okay? Now, let's trust Italy's numbers and assume that 10% of the cases are serious enough to require hospitalization. Keep in mind that for many patients, that will last for weeks. The treatment in the hospital and ICU, the hospital, and if it gets to that point where you have the viral pneumonia that comes, you are knocked down. You are as close to death as you can get. You're literally going to have permanent lung damage when this is over. Okay, so keep in mind that the hospitalization will last for weeks. In other words, turnover will be very slow. Okay. Is beds filled with COVID-19 patients? I'm trying to see something here. Where did I do it? Oh, up top. Sorry. AN. Here we go. By this estimate, by about May 8th, there it is. All hospital beds in the U.S. will be filled. Write these dates down because it's even if she's off by 2 days here, 2 days before, 2 days, it's not going to matter. It's still going to fall within that week. It's still going to happen, guys. Mathematically, she has this down to a T. Go check out this thread, I'm telling you. If you just type into Twitter at Liz Specht COVID-19 thread, this will come up. If we are wrong, all right, by this estimate, by May 8th, all open hospital beds in the U.S. will be filled. This says nothing, of course, about whether the beds are suitable for isolation patients with a highly infectious virus. If we're wrong by a factor of 2 regarding the fraction of severe cases, that only changes the timeline of bed saturation by 6 days in either direction. 20% of the cases require hospitalization. We run out of beds May 2nd. If only 5% of the cases require it, we can make it until May 14th. 2.5 gets us till May 20th. And this assumes there's no uptick in demand for beds from other non-COVID-19 causes, which seems like a dubious assumption. As the healthcare system becomes increasingly burdened, prescription shortage, etc., people with chronic conditions that are normally well managed may find themselves slipping into severe states of medical distress and requiring intensive care and hospitalization. I hate that word. Hospitalization. But let's ignore that for now. All right, so that's the beds. Now the masks. Feds say that the national stockpile of 12M N95 masks and 30M surgical masks, which are not ideal but better than nothing. Or they say there's a stockpile of them. There's about 18 million healthcare workers in the US. Let's assume only 6 million are working at any given day. This is likely an underestimate as most people work most days of the week. But again, I'm being conservative at every turn. Sorry, I got to get my glasses. Like I'll lean right over my computer. There are about 18. Okay, the six. I'm just trying to make sure I get it right here. I'm like, okay. COVID-19 cases saturate virtually every state and county, which seems likely to happen any day now. It will soon be irresponsible for healthcare workers to not wear a mask. These healthcare workers would burn through an N95 stockpile in 2 days if each healthcare worker only got one mask per day, which is why we see them passing out in China because they were so low on masks and suits that they wouldn't take them off because once you've taken them off, you throw them out. So they were passing out from being in their gowns and masks all day. Okay. So one per day would not either be sanitary nor pragmatic, though this indeed is what we saw in Wuhan and healthcare workers collapsing on their shift from dehydration because they were trying, that just reminded me, because they were trying to avoid changing their PPE suits I told you, see, because they cannot be reused. How quickly could we ramp up production of these masks? Not very fast at all. The first majority of manufactured are overseas. That's what I'm telling you, all almost in China. But they kept them, these jerks. The raw materials are predominantly overseas. Again, predominantly from China. I hope this teaches us a lesson. I really do. Because we have been so damn dependent on China for so long now. This has got to stop. Now we are screwed because of them. I don't know. All right. So keep in mind that all counties globally will be going through the exact same crisis and shortages simultaneously, and we can't force trade in our favor. Now consider how these two factors, bed and mask shortages, compound each other's severity. Full hospitals plus few masks plus HCWs running around between beds without proper PPE equals a very bad mix. Healthcare workers are getting infected even with access to full PPE. And in the face of PPE limitations, this is severe. It's only a matter of time healthcare workers will start dropping out from the workforce for weeks at a time. That's scary because there's so many people that need the healthcare workers right now, and if they're homesick, then God knows there's so many other people out there that are gonna may die because there's nobody there to take care of them. Healthcare workers are getting infected. I read that part. We could go on and on about thousands of factors, a number of ventilators. Okay, here we go. We could go on and on, thousands of factors, number of ventilators. Oh, shit. Go back. That was a good one because she explained, you got to remember, we have hospitals that come on. There we go. Right here. Here we go. We go on and on about thousands of factors, number of ventilators, or even simple things like saline drip bags. You see where this is going? Yeah, everything adds up to that. They're waiting to see what's going to run out when, and then they'll hit you with that bad news. They're not going to give you the bad news until you're already at the store looking for it. Importantly, I cannot stress this enough, even if I'm wrong, even very, very wrong about the core assumptions like the percentage of severe cases or the current case number. It can only change the timeline by a few days or weeks, guys, which is why you need to go back again in the video and write down the dates I told you. Because within a few days before or a few days after, that is when we are going to be taken over by this virus. And you need to have everything prepared. I'm not leaving my house, period. But I have family and children out there that I fear for so much. I don't want to cry. I was thinking about it's just a scary. This is the scariest thing that's ever happened in my life. There, I said it. I'm not a big pussy or anything, but it's true. Scariest thing that's ever happened in all of my life, health wise. I've never lived through like an act of God or what do you call it, natural disaster or whatever. But this is probably worse if you ask me. So importantly, I cannot stress this enough. I told you that I'm very wrong about about core assumptions. This is how exponential growth in immunologically naive population works. Oh, okay. So her baby's not vaccinated. That's a big. You better keep that baby inside then. Sorry, that's what that's about. Okay. This is what my mind does all day. Okay, undeserved panic does not do anyone and it does no one any good, but neither does ill-informed complacency. It's wrong to assuage the public by saying only 2% will die. People aren't adequately grasping the national and global systemic burden brought on by this swift moving of a disease. I'm an engineer. This is what my mind does all day. I run back of the envelope calculations to try to estimate order